resources, connecting those individuals and those families with the resources that are needed in our community in order to help those families be stronger and better. I'm very happy to have partnered with all of these individuals here today. You'll also hear from our council member who has a very important messaging campaign as well. There is no one message that's going to reach everyone. There are so many people who need our help, and we're just hoping that one of our messaging campaigns will reach those who really need it. And so while we can't say things all the time, or our messaging can't always be leave, you don't need to be in that violent situation because of the dynamics of the family, our message is simple: say help. Hashtag say help. And we're asking people to say help, whether they are the ones who are experiencing the abuse or they are the abuser. There is no judgment if you ask for help. There is no judgment if you ask for help. So next, I would like to turn to someone, and really his story is one of the reasons why I'm here today. Mr. Oxley had a case in my office. I won't talk about it. I'll let him talk about it, but it's a heartbreaking case that really, I think, sends and is the example of why we need a protocol around family violence and why we need to advertise resources in our community to address mental health, and why, quite frankly, we need to advocate for a long-term treatment facility in our county. We can no longer only rely on acute care treatment. It's great, it's wonderful, we need that as a stopgap. But long term, sometimes individuals cannot live safely at home. That's the reality of it. That's the reality. There are some families where their family members are suffering from such mental health struggles, and that they present a danger to those in their household that it is not safe for them to be there. We need to have places for families like that too. And so as part of this collaborative, in addition to the work that we will do today, which is educating people on the resources we have in the community, training our law enforcement partners on our new protocol, we will also advocate at the county level, the state level, and the federal level for resources to build a long-term care facility here in Prince George's County for people who truly need it, where they can be close to their families. They can be close to their families because we still love our family members, right? And we want to be close to them, but we also don't want to be abused or hurt or potentially killed by them either. And so those are the tough situations, those are the tough issues that we are addressing here as a collaborative. And so if you don't mind, Mr. Oxley, if you could come up, tell your story and what you believe is needed here in the county. Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you, Honorable State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. To everyone that's assembled today, law enforcement, to the media, to Malika Jackson, who's my partner in real estate and business and everything that we do. I give honor first to God, who's the creator of my life, to the Holy Spirit. I say shalom, assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. Before I get into the story in a few minutes, I want to read something real quick from Matthew 10:28. I'm not a religious person, or I'm a spiritual person. God said, those who worship me must worship me in spirit and in truth. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. And the brother shall deliver the brother up to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents, and cause them to be put to death. And they shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But he that endureth to the end shall be saved. That's in Matthew 10:28. This is the time that we're in right now, and it's real. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, that is accepted guidance and discipline as his representatives, for this is right. For obedience teaches wisdom and self-discipline. Honor, esteem, value as precious your father and your mother, and be respectful to them. This is the first commandment with the promise, so that they may be well with you, and that you may have a long life on earth. Fathers, Do not provoke your children to anger. Do not exasperate them to the point of resentment with demands that are trivial or unreasonable or humiliating or abusive, nor by showing favoritism or indifference to any of them, but bring them up in elderly loving kindness and the discipline of the instructions of the Lord. And that's from Ephesians 6. The reason I bring that forward is because what's going on now has been going on since the beginning of time. And yet now we're in this dispensation of this manifestation. Are we seeing it happening every day more and more and more? My name is James Robert Oxley Jr. I was born I'm a Washingtonian. I met my wife in D.C. in 94. We got married in 97. We moved to Prince George's County in 98. And we started building a life. I had a son prior to getting married. I said I'd never do that again. So 8 years into my marriage, we had our first child. Then we ended up having 5 kids. We had 4 boys and 1 girl. And 0505, I joined the Maryland National Guard. Joined the Maryland National Guard. 2007, I was deployed to Iraq, where I was hit by a roadside bomb. Survived that. We bought our first brand new house, built up from the ground up in Upper Marlboro. And then with my GI Bill, bought another house, rented that house out. And in the midst of it, our kids were growing. And I'll get straight to the point. I'm also a retired staff sergeant, medically retired of 2022. Got my MBA in real estate development in 2022 as well. And that brings me to 2021. One of our children, the third child, he grew up little short guy. You know, he was a pretty handsome little guy. And oftentimes we get picked on and things like that. And we found out, he would get in trouble, found out it wasn't him. I'm just fast forwarding. He gets to high school. We put him in CHOP Junior. He went on CHOP Junior. All our kids had a life that we wish we would have had when we was kids. They wanted for nothing. They had everything. We both had our degrees. We were church going. We were great parents to our children. Everywhere we went, people said, we love how your kids, the mannerism and everything. We took them on trips. We gave them the experience of life. However, fast forwarding, he got to high school, Frederick Douglass, and he gets involved with some kids, and we allowed him to get a job and let him play on the football team. And one day I went to pick him up from work, and I smelled marijuana. And I said, hey, you smoking? He said, no, I was sitting in the car with my friend who was smoking. I said, come on, kid. I grew up in D.C. I know you can't pull that over me. I get home, share that with my former wife, and she grabs his iPad and grabs his phone, started going through it, and we realized he was living a double life. He was the sweetest kid at home and around everybody else, but outside of our home, going to school, he was smoking, he was doing all kinds of things. So we started shutting things down. We took the iPad, started monitoring, and I just saw this countenance and expression on his face that I never seen before. And I shared with her, I said, I do not trust him anymore. I said, something is wrong. So she was the disciplinarian. I was the one who just stood there, made sure he didn't do anything to her, whatever. I never struck my kids. She was the disciplinarian. I just stood there because as I read in the scriptures, it's a reason that I chose not to strike my kids, but discipline them in other ways, taking things from them, sitting them down. Anyway, so she started taking everything away. She let him go live with her mother. And when she went to live with the mother would take him to school. I'll pick him up. So he was on the bus and getting high and all that stuff. November time frame came. It was snow. My other oldest son, he went to the Air Force, so she wanted all the kids home. So we let him stay home. And then Frederick Douglass and the schools closed down because of COVID and snow. My wife got sick on January 5th. I'm fast forwarding through it. Got sick on January 5th. Took her to Southern Maryland Hospital. Stayed in overnight. Realized it was just a bad cold. She didn't have the COVID or anything like that. Picked her up on the 6th. We come home. We were fasting in our fasting period. And I asked the boys, I said, go ahead and clean up. I'm great, fixing some vegan food while we're fasting. My wife went upstairs, taking a shower. I was sitting on the couch here, my 8-year-old sitting down there, and my 2-year-old at the time was on the floor, on a Minnie Mouse couch. And I was on the computer, so my wife came back down, And she came, touched me on the head, and said, "Best friend." That was her last words to me, "best friend." She went to the bathroom, came back, sat down. I'm on the computer, and all I can hear is pow, pow. I said, "Oh my gosh," I said, "the TV is awfully loud. It's a big television." So I looked, and I see my wife sit up, and then I heard a shot again. I see her sit back. And then I look, and I see a silhouette of somebody, an image. And he turned real quick, and he just fired, shooting my 8-year-old twice. And I looked, I said, "Oh my gosh, that's my son." So I didn't care. I just dropped my computer. I jumped up, I went at him. And he had the gun point blank, and he fired, pow, pow, at me. And that's why I give honor to God, who's the creator of my life, because I'm standing probably up where that camera is, and we're right here. And I'm coming at him, and he fires point blank. And the bullet strikes me here and in my side. So that wasn't nothing but the Spirit of God. That bullet could have hit me here in the arm and taken me out. I'm in the military, so I know what point blank and the body shots can do to you. And then he shoots me twice. I realized that I didn't know that I was shot at the time. I seen the gun drop, and I chased him around, because I have two ways to go around my house. I chased him around. He went around one way. I went around the other way. Caught him at the door, and I was wrestling with him, trying to get him on the floor. And what I realized is that when I tried to grab him with this arm, I couldn't. I said, "Oh man," he must have shot me. So I'm getting a little dizzy. So the Lord said, "Let him go." So I let him go. He flies out the back door, shut the door. I go tend to my wife. I realized that she had expired, and my 8-year-old son had expired. And then this time, my other son was upstairs. He came down, said, "What happened?" I told him I'm on the phone with the paramedics. I'm on the phone with the police. And I mean, they came just like that. They came in, and we had to call the police before, because he went down to some friend's house and was stoned out his brain. And the officer came up and was talking to him, and he was standing around. He was like, looking around. He's like, "Kid," he said, "you got this big house you live in. You got these wonderful parents. Why are you down in a house that nobody will want to live in?" But that's what he wanted, you know. So I look at these kids, those kids that don't have anything, not all the time, but don't have anything, oftentimes gravitate to those kids who don't have anything, and then they run amok, and they want to rob, steal, kill, and everything else. But in this situation, this kid had everything, and yet it wasn't enough. And he wanted the life of the kids that was doing mischief. It was more appealing to him. Even after I shared my life story with him of being in the streets of D.C. and what I went through and how God brought me out of that. So in the midst of that, they take me out. They fly me to the Maryland, Southern Maryland, and then they medevac me to the new hospital where I received treatment. And now he's incarcerated. And here's the thing that I know as mental health therapists in here. Here's the thing I wouldn't have known is that when he was in Cheltenham, he passed out. They took him to Georgetown. And when they took him to Georgetown, they found out he had all these lesions on his brain in some rare form of MS that was developing. We found out he was vaping, he was doing all kinds of things. So we don't know what he was ingesting that could have caused these lesions on the brains. So these kids that's running amok and that's doing what they're doing, oftentimes could have some sort of brain damage, something manifesting in their brain, and then when they ingest the drugs or whatever, they don't see. Because when I grabbed him, his face was, he didn't have any emotions. Yes, thank you. Expressionless, thank you. It was in my brain, couldn't get it out. Expressionless, and it was nothing there. He wasn't there. It wasn't him. He wasn't there, and I knew it was a problem. And yet we tried prior to getting up to this point. I know my minutes is up. Prior to getting to this point, when he was going through, we tried to reach out to everyone. I'm in the military. I reached out to the military. I reached out to the police that came to our house. He said, "Only thing we can do is incarcerate him." You can't keep incarcerating mental illness. He's never been arrested. You can't keep incarcerating a mental illness. They need a facility. I was trying to find a facility where he can go, still get his education, get mental therapy, drug counseling, and all kinds of things in a safe environment where he can grow up and come out of that childhood state and be like, "Thank God that what I was going through, now I'm a man or I'm a grown up, now I'm healed." But if we don't do that, if we don't find this, we're going to keep having these issues. The state's attorney here now, or whoever may replace her when she promotes up, it's going to keep going through the same problem. We know where she's going next. It's the same problem. You know, we're going to run into the same issue. So what you stated today, Honorable Aisha Braveboy, is that, yes, we need some type of facility. There's a lot of buildings. I'm a real estate agent. Malika's real estate agent. There's a lot of buildings that we can transform in Prince George's County or surrounding counties of Maryland to start putting our youth in it to give them a chance. Get them away from the streets, get them away from the drugs, let them detox their body, detox their mind, and put them in a positive environment. My name is James Robert Oxley. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, and God is great. Love you all with the love of God.
Thank you, Mr. Oxley. Powerful story. And so when you hear stories like this, and imagine me having to being this prosecutor, having to figure out how to find justice where the individual who is the next of kin, who we would be consoling and seeking services for, is also the individual responsible for the respondent in the case. That's tough. And what does justice look like? Oftentimes in families' cases, there is no real justice. It's just whatever we can do to try to make things better. And we don't want to be in that situation. We really don't. And that's why we want to focus on prevention, which is really about how we respond when we know something is wrong. And so, Sheriff, where's our sheriff? Great partner. He's my main collaborator in this, and I appreciate the work that you always do for our community.
Good morning, all. How are you today? Good morning. I am just, I'm happy to be here in one aspect, and then another aspect, I am tired. As October highlights Domestic Violence Awareness Month, my predecessor 11 years ago started Purple Light Nights, in which we had last week. We now expanded that through other counties. But those stories that we just heard, we're hearing too consistently. This is something that is consistent in our community. So before I even get started about what we plan on doing and how we're going to be moving forward, I first want to thank our wonderful state's attorney, who's always been receptive and always been in the front of issues and problems and wanting to be very proactive instead of reactive to issues. I want to thank our councilwoman, our mayors here, our municipal mayors, and also our chiefs, as this is a collaborative effort in order to address domestic violence here in our community of Prince George's County. When taking office almost a year and a half ago, coming right out of COVID, we were averaging a little bit over 2,000 peace and protective orders a month here in Prince George's County. Unfortunately, that number still is consistent to where we're around 2,000 a month. Last month alone, we had 84,000 citizens go in and out of that courthouse because they had some sort of legal or court-related issues. Many of those were actually dealing with homicides, murder trials. A lot of them were dealing with mental health, as we're averaging a little bit over 100 emergency petitions a month. So when we do talk about domestic violence, we've always focused on just intimate partners. But we really need to look at our families, because our families are hurting. They're hurting. And there is no jurisdiction, there is no city, there is no county. When you look at it from a state perspective, we are all going through the same things. And this is something to where, what are we going to do in order to make this better? Collaborative efforts like this, #NoMore, ran by the councilwoman, these are initiatives that not only involve everybody up here as far as a collaborative effort, but there's something to where we're all doing our piece in the community, because this is a community problem. This is something to where, as our families, they're hurting. There is no manual about how to be a parent. And if I have multiple children and I have one that's not right, what am I doing with the rest that need my attention, that need my care? A lot of our citizens are looking to us as public safety, looking to us as our community leaders, and they're looking for answers. They're looking for resources. We have resources. We're working and partnering with nonprofit organizations. You have government organizations. You have our city and our municipal agencies. They all have resources that they're giving. But the people they need to know that consistently somebody's going to be there with them. Because it is very hard for you to go through an issue like the story that we just heard and to think that I can go through this and go through this court process, and then now that the court process is over, everything is done. Those scars will never go away. You will always deal with this. And this is something to where this collaborative effort of us coming together as a community, no matter what agency you're with, no matter what jurisdiction you may be with, this is how we solve our issues and problems. So I'd just like to say I thank everybody up here for allowing me to partner with you and to just say, #SayHelp. Because when you know that there's an issue and a problem, and we keep talking about those issues and problems, and we keep doing the same thing, thinking that we're going to get a different result, they call that insanity. So therefore, what are we as a community going to do to change this behavior in our community? And this is all connected together. As we talked about youth violence, the carjackings, issues in our schools, they start at home. They start at home. Our parents in our communities, our seniors are asking for our assistance and help, and this is a way that we start to do so. So I'm happy to partner with everybody up here and anybody in our community so that we can eradicate domestic violence, not only intimate partners, but family violence. So I do say again, #SayHelp.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We do have a number of partners who will be speaking. They will limit their comments to 2 minutes because we know we have several of them, and they'll hit their main points and what services they provide. And I'd like to turn it over to my great partner, our Councilwoman Crystal Oriada.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilman Crystal Oriada. I have the pleasure of representing District 7 on the Prince George's County Council. And again, I want to first say thank you for the work that you're doing and expanding the conversation past just domestic violence, because I think sometimes this goes forgotten and not talked about. I do want to highlight the No More campaign that I'm working in partnership with the State's Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Office. And it's really bringing all of us together to say no more do we want to see this violence here in Prince George's County and across the state. So we have a virtual resource guide that has access to shelter services, resources, counseling, and we're asking organizations that if you don't see yourself listed, give us your information so that we can add you to the campaign. We also have an awareness campaign around educating people about what it looks like, because a lot of people don't understand the signs and what to look for. And then also educating people that there is no stigma. A lot of times when survivors feel like they're alone, they're isolated, people are going to think, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? And so when we talk about 1 out of 4 women, 1 out of 9 men experiencing domestic violence, we know that they're not alone. As a survivor of domestic violence, one of the things I'm most proud of is legislation that we're moving on the state level, which is the Healing Scars Act that's going to be sponsored by Delegate Ashanti Martinez. This piece of legislation is going to transform when we talk about restitution and the idea of healing the scars of survivors. I was inspired by this legislation because years after leaving my domestic violence relationship and healing and having a beautiful partner and a beautiful son, I'm still reminded of the violence every time I look in the mirror, because I have scars that are so damaged that without plastic surgery,
Amen. Amen.
sorry,
Amen.
they'll never go away. And it reminds me of so many victims that every moment they look at themselves, they're taken back to the trauma that they've experienced. And so what this legislation will do is say that it's mandatory for insurance companies to cover plastic surgery for our domestic violence survivors. It'll also work to amend the Victims of Crime Act to include plastic surgery costs as a resource and mental health services for those that are not insured. And lastly, the bill will look at restitution for survivors and making sure that when our abusers are taken to justice by the state's attorney, there's mechanisms for restitution. We have over $8 million in lost wages for survivors of abuse, just alone. not talking about mental health services or restitution for other areas. So I'm excited about this campaign, but we can't do it alone. We need everyone to join the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's office, myself, Delegate Ashanti Martinez, all of the people standing here today, so that we can make sure we get this across the finish line. And hopefully, this is a piece of legislation, not here just in Maryland, but that the nation will follow us in doing this. So thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from the president of the Prince George's County Police Chiefs Association, Chief Tyrone Collington.
Good morning. Honorable State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy, elected officials, esteemed guests, and to our partner, Sheriff John Carr. It is a great honor and a privilege to serve as the Chief of Police for the Bladensburg Police Department and as President of the Police Chiefs Association of Prince George's County. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Madam Braveboy, a tireless advocate for all residents and victims affected by domestic violence in Prince George's County and beyond. Her unwavering dedication has earned her deep respect throughout the county, particularly among members of the Police Chiefs Association. For over 2 decades, Madam Braveboy has fought for justice, ensuring that victims of these heinous acts receive the support that they need. As October marks the beginning of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we proudly join Madam Braveboy and our partner, Sheriff Carr, in launching the new collaborative initiative to end and eradicate domestic violence. We recognize that domestic violence does not discriminate based on gender, identity, sexual orientation, race, or social, economic status. We are thankful for Madam Braveboy's courage, tenacity, and commitment to being a voice for those affected by domestic violence. She is dedicated to eradicating the abuse that victims have endured for far too long. Whether it's victims facing their abuser or a child fearing for their safety, Madam Braveboy's strong approach to addressing domestic violence and her commitment to justice make Prince George's County a safer place for everyone. Madam Braveboy, thank you once again for your leadership and your unwavering dedication to protecting our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now hear from the CEO of the Community Crisis Services, otherwise known as 988, Tim Jansen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning / now afternoon to everyone. I'm Tim Jansen. I'm the CEO at Community Crisis Services in Hyattsville, Maryland. Our organization has been doing crisis intervention, suicide prevention, and domestic violence prevention and intervention for 55 years. 988 is not new. It's a new phone number. It's a new way to connect people that is easy to remember. The hotline used to be a long 10-digit number that no one could remember. So the feds came together and turned it into 988. So like 411, 311, 911. 988 is your call to talk with somebody to get help. All you got to do is pick up the phone. They don't need your name, where you're calling from. They may ask that, but you don't have to tell them. It's a great way to start a conversation about what might be going on. I sit back and I listen to the stories that I've heard, and I recognize the scars that people have shared, and it's amazing, and the strength that it shows to get up here and say those things is amazing, because these stories help everyone else who has a story, because most of us have a story. 988 is the suicide and crisis line. That doesn't mean you have to be having thoughts of suicide to call, or even be in crisis. I'm worried about somebody, so I'm going to call. One of the things that we all need to, as Michelle Obama would say, do something about is get involved, make a call, ask a question. See if there's a resource. One of the great things about 988 and your crisis center here in this county, we answer on the phone in English and in Spanish 24 hours a day. You can text or chat. You can communicate video chat with ASL for our deaf and hard of hearing residents in the county. We have lots of them, lots of ways to connect. I will share with you that one of the aspects of family violence that is often overlooked is suicide. Suicide is family violence. I lost my mom to suicide 4 years ago. I have scars. They're not, I don't look in the mirror and see them all the time. But when I see her picture, sometimes that's what I think. And lots of people will say suicide is not an issue in my community. Wrong. It's an issue in everyone's community, and it is family violence. So thanking everyone that's here for everything you're doing. Get 988 out there. We will answer the phone. Average speed to answer is about 30 seconds. We will answer your text, your chat, in Spanish, in English. When I was watching Michelle Obama's speech last month and she said, do something, we all know what that meant, by the way. But what she also meant is get involved, ask a question, share your story, help somebody out. So I could talk about this all day, as you can tell, but I'll get in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble. So thank you all very much, and thanks everybody here for all you do.
Thank you. And thank you for sending the message home that 988, though it is considered a suicide prevention and crisis line, they can connect families to resources. So that's an easy number to call, because sometimes it's difficult to call 911, but you can call 988. You can call 988. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Denise McCain, who's the director of our Family Justice Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. To Madam State's Attorney, I first and foremost want to thank you for your leadership on this issue. You know, oftentimes we see problems here. We talk about problems, but no one does anything about the problems. And when we have leaders who are in a position to effectuate change, it's commendable. So I thank you for that, because this is real. And my heart goes out to you, sir, for your loss, and I'm sure your family is still dealing with it, but I'm glad that we're here where we are today. And I know it's not an isolated incident. We are hearing about the numbers. I'm now the parent of adult children, but I have a son who at one time could have been your son, but for interventions and people who were there to support me, raised my children as a single mother. And fortunately, the Air Force was there. I remember the day that I took him in for his testing. I was just praying that any marijuana that was in his system was no longer there, so he would get in. So I certainly relate to you and understand what this is about. But this is a real issue, and you know, I'm grateful for the partnership that we have. I just met with Sheriff Carr yesterday, I believe, and we talked about the need to make changes here and to put policies and processes in place to assure that we are actually doing the work that we do. Here, where we are at the Family Justice Center, we are also that one-stop shop. We're that resource for families that are suffering, survivors. We traditionally have worked with intimate partner violence, but the one group where we have seen needing our help is really seniors. We have a number of elders who come to us, and their perpetrators are family members. And just like was pointed out, they are trying to get help. Their children, nieces, nephews are abusing them, taking advantage of them. So this problem is real, and this project is really going to make a difference. So we're just grateful to be here, to partner with you. I thank all of you for what you do here, because this is a community issue. As with most, it's collective collaboration. We have to do this together as a community, because it's a real problem. And while someone may think it's not me, it does spill over into the community at large. So again, I thank you for your leadership and for all of you and the work that you do here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Sandy Timmons, Executive Director of the House of Ruth.
Hi everyone, I'm Florencia Carrizo-Hilu. Unfortunately, Sandy couldn't be here today, but I'm going to be speaking on behalf of House of Ruth Maryland. Good morning. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the incredible partnership that this initiative has. We're so grateful for the state's attorney for extending this invitation and for recognizing the value of working together and making a real difference for the people in Prince George's County. At House of Ruth, our administrative office is based in Baltimore City, but our reach extends beyond. We are proudly served not only Baltimore, but also Baltimore County, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County. In fact, 18% of the 11,000 people we serve annually come from Prince George's County. That's about 2,000 individuals each year who rely on our services in the community. We've been dedicated to supporting Prince George's County for nearly 2 decades, providing not just shelter resources, but also crucial clinical counseling services and legal representation. Our presence includes work in 2 courthouses in the county, ensuring that survivors of domestic violence have access and legal and emotional support that they need. We are eager to expand our services here and look forward to working more closely with the community together. Together, we can create a lasting change, ensuring that no one in Prince George's County faces domestic violence alone. If you know or if you are experiencing intimate partner violence, please contact our hotline, which is 24 hours. Do not hesitate to reach out. Our numbers are 410-889-7884. Again, 410-889-7884. Thank you guys for being here today, and I am so happy to be standing with you guys today. Thank you.
And thank you so much. And oftentimes, people think of House of Ruth, they think about intimate partner, victims of intimate partner violence. But when we started several months ago with putting together this collaborative, House of Ruth said, count us in. We serve more than just intimate partner victims. And so that was something that I didn't even know. And so I'm grateful for the partnership from the House of Ruth. Before we hear from our last speaker, which is our host here, Metalworks, who's going to be represented by Dr. Ron Garrett. I know that Mayor Selena Benitez wanted to be here today. She is the president of the Municipal Mayors Association. She was unable to join us, and I know we have a few mayors here. If anyone wants to say a couple of words on behalf of the mayors, I would appreciate it. I don't know who's okay, thank you. If our mayors can
Come on, all the mayors, come up here. I'm Mayor Kashina A. Cross, City of Glenarden. Thank you, Madam State's Attorney. Thank you to Sheriff Carr. Thank you to our illustrious Krista Orada, who is the County Council member. On behalf of the mayors, in her absence, Mayor Selena Benitez, who is the Prince George's County Mayors Association President. We do stand here as mayors and acknowledge that we not only have a deliberate responsibility to this program, but we are invested in this program because we are the leaders who shepherd the flock that is unfortunately impacted by this program. I stand here with our mayors that will also stand with this program, but we give another number, 88788. It is a domestic violence number that is associated also with 988. So you now have numbers that are associated that we will combat the problem. It's not just that we want to expose and criticize, but we want to heal and empathize because it could be any one of us. And the beauty of the stories that are shared today shows that every average citizen has a capacity for this to happen in their house. So don't think it's not you. So we are grateful, State's Attorney. We are grateful to Sheriff Carr, and we are grateful to Mayor Kelly, as well as our mayor from Laurel, for making sure that we definitely stand up for the Prince George's County mayors.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And last but certainly not least, our host, and this is so important, and afterwards I think we're going to get maybe a tour for those who can stay for a tour. This is a phenomenal facility. Dr. Ron Garrett, thank you.
My wife was looking at me frowning. She thinks I'm up here texting messages. I'm trying to make a few notes so that I won't. I have a preacher's spirit, so I didn't want to get up here and get too long-winded. Amen. Amen. All right, we at church. Okay. So my name is Dr. Ron Garrett. I serve as the director of Reentry Health Services and Supports for Metalworks Behavioral Health. But I have to make it clear that I'm formally known as inmate number 103-9005. Because I served 20 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. And what we're talking about here today, I was able to, I had the opportunity to descend from a place of freedom in the community to go and see what the impact that it's had on people's lives who do not have access to adequate behavioral health care. From 1998 to 2018, September the 4th was my 6-year anniversary being back in the community. For during those 20 years, I was in the Georgia system when the laws actually changed because the state, the federal government, was no longer willing to bear the expense of having full-service residential behavioral health care treatment for our family. And they made the choice that a better place for them to be, a more cost-effective place for them to be, is in prison. I watched a 1,000-man prison transition to 500 beds of folks who did not have a diagnosis to 500 beds of a section of our prison that was called the mental health unit. Isn't that, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So with that said, on behalf of Mr. Craig Gregory and Ms. Christine Gregory, I get to welcome y'all to Metalworks Behavioral Health. We are a full-service, CARF-accredited core behavioral health care agency. We serve about 425 clients per month. And I don't even like to use the word clients. I really prefer to use the word of our family members, because that's the way we approach the work that we do here at Metalworks Behavioral Health. What we do is based on the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is an evidence-based approach to providing services to people who need it. Our goal is not to rub a crystal ball and tell the individuals that come for services here what they need, because we understand that our family members that come for our services, they are the experts in their own lives. I would like to say thank you to the state's attorney.